Okay,
Does this work?
ladies and gentlemen, take a seat. You're ready for tonight's impromptu lecture. I'd like to introduce Steve Kennedy of Future Systems. Steve and John up the back, John Kessner, who works for him as well, are doing some work with the company I work for, Manly-Warringah. But Steve's got a lot of other interests too, particularly in HF Radio and SDR, so he offered to come along and he bought all his kit too, so make them welcome.
Test. I think this is working, but all right. Yeah, hi, my name's Steve Kennedy. Sorry?
It doesn't go to the speakers, just to hear.
Oh, okay, right here. How's that? Okay. Okay, my name's Steve Kennedy. I'm VK6SJ, used to be VK2SJK up in the Hunter Valley. And I'm the principal of Future Systems, which is a Perth-based but now Australia-wide radio communications company. And one of our areas of expertise has been in HF radio. I came here last year, I think it was last year, John, and talked about our HF Oz network. And since then we've started to delve more into the amateur radio space as well as a small offshoot, really, to make sure that John and I have got an excuse to play a bit of ham radio with the business as well. John down the back's the operations manager for the East Coast side of the business. He's 3ATV. Been a ham for about the same amount of time as me, or a bit longer. I think, haven't it?
1979.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I was 81. So, but predominantly today, here to tell you about the FlexRadio. We were appointed about August last year as the Australian New Zealand distributor for FlexRadio. And we're pretty excited about it. We really haven't hit our straps yet. We're still getting our marketing material together and working out how to get out to the market. But thought, we're in Sydney quite a bit, so it'd be a shame to miss out on an opportunity to show this to you guys. We've been showing it around Perth a fair bit, but this is the first time we've really taken it to the other side. So. Just a quick thing, who is Future Systems? We're currently Perth and Melbourne based, although more of our work's in Sydney than anywhere else. Predominantly we're a voice and data radio systems integrator. We do a lot of work with, amateur radio is a very small part of the business, but one we're fairly passionate about and we enjoy a lot. Fair whack of our employees are also hams. Our major focus is on public safety, mining, rail, enterprise and ham radio. In amateur radio, we're a dealer for Benelec accessories, and I actually started that little journey for us. I was doing a bit of work for Benelec a few years back, about three or 4 years ago now, and I suddenly found out that they had Comet stuff, so I bought some because I needed an antenna for a car I was driving over to Perth. I was in the middle of moving to Perth. And from there we started selling it in Perth, and it's been quite successful. Since then we've taken on the Hustler antenna dealership, so we actually stock quite a good range of Hustler antennas in Perth, and we'll stretch that out if we get enough demand. And of course we're the FlexRadio distributor for Australia and New Zealand, so if you want to buy a FlexRadio and you live in Australia or New Zealand, you need to come to us, but we intend to make that cost effective and attractive. Amateur radio, this is a question I get asked by a lot of my own team as well as some of my competitors and other people in the industry as to why we're actually coming out and saying we're proud to be a part of this little part of our radio industry. We believe it's got a place in the commercial radio game. It's probably the only place we're going to get new incomers into the industry is through amateur radio. It does funnel new blood into the game, which is really important at the moment. We think championing this is good for business. Certainly, from my perspective, I've made quite a few good commercial business contacts through my involvement with amateur radio, and so I'm fairly passionate about making sure that that's known around the industry. And I encourage anyone of you guys that is actually working in the industry to push this as well, because we need to bring amateur radio into the fold of the greater radio industry and show that we have some value to place. In Perth, there was no businesses retailing amateur radio equipment in Perth, so that was predominantly the reason why I got into it. And Flex didn't have representation in Australia, which was a real shame because it's actually an extremely good product. So FlexRadio for us. A few others have delved into it. I think FlexRadio have appointed at least one other dealer that I know of in the past, and I know another company went down the path with him and decided not to in the end. FlexRadio and our company Future Systems have a few common values that I really got to enjoy with them in the last few months. We're both small to medium-sized businesses. We both aspire to providing excellence in everything that we do. We like being a little bit different to the rest of the competition, which is one of the reasons why we got into HF in the first place. And we're both growing organically. In other words, we don't have lots of some big company throwing lots of money into our business. Everything we do is funded by the profit we make yesterday. And we both share a passion for this hobby. So with the advertising out of the road, really what I'm trying to do here, there's probably a few of you in here that know far more about software-defined radios than me. I'll make no secret of that. We're fairly new to this. I've owned a software-defined radio for probably a bit over a year, I guess. You know, we've had a fair bit of exposure since we took over the FlexRadio thing. And I've just sort of really tried to provide a bit of a 101 of software-defined radio as a technology. And so, you know, if you find something in here that's wrong, by all means tell me. But I don't profess to be an expert in this field. But I figured I'd do this to maybe help bring a bit of interest of the technology into the hobby. So basically, software-defined radio converts RF to a digital stream, and then from at that point, it then processes the data to form intelligence. So you basically bring it into a digital form, and then the radio, and then the computer or the processor is actually then turning that into a voice stream on audio speakers or into digital data to go into a program or whichever. Predominantly, generally being used as a PC, either in an external PC or, in the case of something like the IC7300, it's an internal PC, or some kind of serious processor, and then into a user interface or embedded in a digitizing process. So SDRs, Softrock. Big on the really low value sort of $50, $60 kits. They're pretty good fun to play with. It's the first thing I played with. I tried to use one as a pan adapter for my FT2000. Apache Labs, very good product. ELAD's gaining a lot of exposure in the industry now. Hearing more and more people own them. An ICOM IC7300 has got to be the most phenomenal selling radio in the market at the moment. It's just amazing how many have been sold even in Australia alone. And FlexRadio. Sorry?
Even in this room.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, same. The club I'm in I'm in the Northern Corridor group in Perth, and we bought like 15 of them at once. Got a pretty good deal on that. I didn't buy one, of course. I had to sell my Apache Labs. I had a NAN 200 and I had to sell it when I took the dealership on, because I couldn't be seen. Plus I needed something to fund my first demo gear. So, different approaches to SDR technology. PC sound card based analog to digital. This is really the first sort of software defined radios that came into the market. It's a common one by Softrock. There's a few other simple QRP receivers and transceivers. Cheap and cheerful. And it's a really good place to learn more about the principles of software-defined radio. It's used not only for actual RF operation but also as a PAN adapter. So, for instance, I've got an FT2000. It's got this 10 meg IF card embedded in it, and that just brings out a 10 meg IF. And if you get a receiver on 10 megs, you can use it as a PAN adapter. So cheap, poor man's version of the what do they call it, DMR 1000 or 2000 or whatever, the box that comes with the FT2000 to do the same thing. Too much Scottish blood for me to buy one of them. Analog to digital analog conversion carried out in the radio, but with processing carried out by a PC. This is probably the most common one you'll see. Apache Labs uses it. The earlier FlexRadios used it. The little 1500 down here, the pocket rocket. The 3000 and 5000 series radios do it. It's pretty good. It's evolving software, providing more and more features. Predominantly sort of open source software. So particularly with the Apache Labs and that sort of area, there's lots of people playing around and adding extra things into it, which is just fantastic. It's exactly what amateur radio is about. For 10 years before I got into the hobby, most people built their own radios, and that was sort of gone by the time I got into it. It was pretty rare to find someone who built their own HF transceiver, and now we've kind of gone back to that. But you're playing with software instead of hardware. So I think there's a big place for that kind of platform as well. And then the same approach, but inside something that looks more like a normal radio. So your processing's carried out in the radio, which is actually a much better way of doing it than with the approach using a PC. You certainly get a lot less of the sort of latency that you get with your normal sort of software-defined radios, getting a computer to boot up, and then Windows, bless its cotton socks, sort of goes, it's time for a restart, halfway through a DX contact. Those kind of things tend not to happen so much in something like a 7300. In the commercial world now, most new generation radios from HF right through to UHF, etc., are following the same sort of software-defined approach, which is allowing lots of interesting things. We work closely with a company, Sydney-based manufacturer actually, that is starting to do some really amazing things with their VHF and above products, and software for just a software license to produce any sort of digital protocol that you want, being able to go from 70 megs to 900 megs in one transceiver and things like that. This is pretty much the future, but you won't find too many new versions of any of the brands now that come out that aren't software defined, I think. I think ICOM have been pretty good at capturing the market in that area at the moment. And then A to D and D to A conversion carried out in the radio, but using a PC or an external console to provide a GUI. This is the Flex 6000 approach. They're pretty much alone in this part of it. It's a much more powerful platform. There's a lot of time and money that's gone into developing this to a point where the computer is really just an operating interface, just the same as your HRD is to your normal sort of superhet radio. It's a lot more reliable. It's a more powerful platform, and the Flex have really done it probably in a way that no one else has yet, in terms of poking as much power and D to A conversion, etc., into the box as anyone else. The other thing is, I don't know if any of you have got an Apache Labs or one of those type of radios. The amount of bandwidth that you need from the radio to the computer is quite high. Makes it quite hard to use from a remote location. So if you're trying to set one of these up at home and use a computer to operate your radio while you're on a business trip or something, bordering on impossible. I've done it with a team using TeamViewer, so you're only just seeing the picture really, but even that's quite hungry on your data. I think one night I tried it and would have almost been cheaper to fly home for the night. with like a $200 bill on my Wi-Fi card. The beauty of it doing it in this way is that the bandwidth required from the computer to the radio is actually quite low and lends itself very nicely to remote operation. In fact, within the next 2 to 3 months, when we demonstrate this gear, we might buy an empty box and put a brick in it or something, but our demonstration will be on a radio sitting in Perth in our office with a Maestro head. And I haven't got my Maestro head here, unfortunately. I sold it, and the other one's arriving like tomorrow in Perth. But we'll come and show that, because at the end of the day, this is not the most exciting black box you've ever seen in the amateur radio world. It's got like 2 plugs and a switch. So no one really wants to look at that, but the performance of the radio and the fact that you can use it somewhere else in the world, I think, is pretty exciting. So yeah, that's the Flex approach. Flex 6000. In terms of its receiver performance, it's recognised by a number of different engineering houses that sort of do this sort of thing. Has been recognised as the top of the field in that area. It is an amazingly good receiver. I've only got 6300 here, which is not quite in the same league, but got a mate in Perth who was another one of the prospective candidates for the Flex dealership. I was listening in like mid-afternoon in Perth and listening to all these VK2s and 3s and thinking, this is not what I hear at home. Admittedly, he lives out in the property and it's got a bit of wire up, but it's the difference even with the 6300 compared to like my FT 2000, it's just you just can't compare it. It's got a growing market share in the States. They're aiming for 10% and of the market, and I'm quite confident they'll get there. I'd like to do something similar in our market here. The good thing about it is that growing market share is allowing full-time professional software development for the product. So you're not relying on a couple of really good guys. There's some really good guys out in the SDR world, like Phil Harmon in Perth and people around the world that are developing those products, and it's fantastic, and we should I hope that never ever stops. The advantage of this is that there's 3 or 4 people who are at the absolute top of their game, sitting in rooms in Texas doing nothing but developing this platform. And now that the hardware platform is pretty stable, it's not likely to change an awful lot over the next probably 4 or 5 years at least. So all of the money goes into developing the software around it and bringing more and more features into the radio that people enjoy. Once you've bought it, you can just keep getting the features as they come out. So that's one of the good things about having a more sort of commercial bent to it, rather than the shareware sort of thing that others in the market are using. And if you compare this brand of radio to the high-end Yaesu, Kenwood and ICOM radios, it's reasonably competitively priced. I mean, the highest price you'll pay for the 6700, which gives you 2 metres and all the HF and 6 metres, is around 11 or 12 grand mark, which is towards the top end of what you'll pay for a radio. But there are radios that cost more, but none that perform better. So other advantages. There's APIs around for the radio, so if you want to get in and play around with different ways to use the radio and adding more functionality, etc., they have an API which allows anyone with a software sort of bent to play around with it, to develop different modes, etc. Flex have been quite open about taking development from others that's been given to them. They don't steal it, but then porting it into firmware, so you develop, because there's like a new digital mode that comes out just about every year, with something different that people start to play with, and they're quite open to people developing stuff and then sending it to them, and they can look at adding it to theirs. Next major version of radio and GUI software, which is version 2. Up at the moment we're up to version 1.10 and above. Will cater for full remote operation, so without having to do any fancy stuff with VPNs and everything like that. It'll cater for plugging a radio in at home, taking a Maestro head or your computer with you and actually using it remotely without too much fuss. And that's probably the holy grail at the moment for software-defined radio functionality. And the approach that they've taken to allow us for low bandwidth requirements, like I was saying before, it's actually something that is practical to use when you're away from home or using having the radio remotely located. Other areas that's also made. For instance, I can show it to you on my phone anytime you want to have a look. I haven't actually worked out how to connect it in yet, but there's now an iPhone app that you can actually control a Flex 6000 series radio from your iPhone. I've only got it working on demo mode in here. I'll show it to you later. But it gives you an idea of where all this is heading, which you can be shopping or something like that, and something comes in, you can just quickly get on and work them and get back into shopping or whatever. For me, I spend 3/4 of my life working away, and I can't wait to get this thing set up at the office. FlexRadio bring out a new amplifier, which will go head to head with your SPUs and those sort of amplifiers, and so we'll have one of those as demo and probably a 6500 sitting in at our office in Perth with a log periodic on the roof, and that'll be a demo radio. But John and I are fighting for access on it at the moment. So other ones, commercially based approach to development and manufacture. The fact that it is getting a growing market share and still has a long way to go to get to the point where it's competing head to head with ICOM and Kenwood, etc. They're going to be around for quite a while. They've got a pretty lean and mean operation. I was over there a couple of months ago having a look. They've probably got 15, 20 people working in the business, and they're probably sending about 6 or 7 of these out a day, predominantly in the US. So it's a pretty healthy market, and that's a good turnover for a company that size. It gives me the confidence that they're going to be around for a while, and they've been around for a while anyway. They were probably the first commercially available software-defined radio in the market. There's a few things. That version 2 software will come out with new radios, but there'll be a fee for upgrading to version 2, but it's like $200 US or something. When you consider the extra features you get and the fact that it's like buying an ICOM radio, and then 2 years time they go, oh look, give us your old one and we'll give you this new one for $200, and you go, oh yeah, I'll be in that. So it's a similar sort of thing. So and there's a hard console now available, which is the Maestro. I don't have one here, but the Maestro is based on a tablet in a control interface, but I use it during the RD and the Lighthouse weekend, and it's really nice. It's great for contesting. It gets rid of all of the sort of issues that you have with a software-defined radio when you're in contesting environment, trying to switch between the radio and your logging software, etc. The Maestro is pretty good for that. It's a little exy, I've got to say. You can buy a nice radio for the cost of the console, but the other thing you can do is there's an API there, and a lot of people have built their own hard console using a MIDI type thing. You can do it with any of the software-defined radios. It's not confined to Flex, and get a similar sort of experience, albeit a slightly less intuitive to use user interface. But a whole lot cheaper. For the range, this is the entry-level radio at the moment, the Flex 1500. That's this little Joey here. 5-watt radio, fits in the palm of your hand. It's in the top 20 in terms of receiver quality. It's about 4 behind the IC7300, and in Australia we sell these for around about $1,100. with I got an SPE 1 KFA at home, and with this I can drive the amplifier up to about 400 watts. So you know, it's a very viable radio for your shack. It's not just a toy. It's using power SDR, which is, you know, along the same lines as your Apache Labs and those sort of radios. It's got a very similar HVSDR is where power SDR is a very similar interface to HVSDR, which is a sort of common open source package. Very small form factor, great for taking away on trips and stuff, and works on 6 metres as well as HF. So this, my gut feeling is once we get this out into the field, a bit more visible in the market, I reckon we might sell quite a few of these in Australia. 6000 series, this is the signature range at the moment, and set to be for quite a while yet. HF and 6 metres on all three models, 2 metres on the 6700 model. Uses Smart SDR, which is a different user interface to what you're used to seeing. Can be used with the Maestro console, which is the hard console we've got, and the 6700 is ranked #1 by Sherwood Engineering in receiver dynamic range and performance. It's capable of full duplex operation. I think it's only 6700 from memory, and capable of D-Star and digital voice as well. A 6300, which is what I've got here on demo tonight. This is our entry-level one, just under 4,000 Australian dollars to buy. 100-watt transceiver, 2 pan adapters with multiple band reception. You actually have two spectrums available on it. It's got optional ATU in it, which this one has, and a 7 megahertz maximum spectrum waterfall bandwidth split across your two pan adapters. 6500. This is the most common selling radio in the range. It's almost $3,000 more expensive than the 6300, but has quite a bit more in it. Integrated ATU, 4 pan adapters, 14 megahertz maximum spectrum waterfall bandwidth, so twice as good as the 6300. Dedicated balanced microphone input, so it's really good for your audio files and stuff. Feeding it with studio audio gear. External 10 meg reference input, so you can make the thing really stable with a fairly cheap GPS reference standard. And multiple amp keying, so you can key different amplifiers, etc. Within the radio. 6700. This is the radio everyone wants when they retire. Right? It's a really nice radio. 100-watt radio again. 8 pan adapters. We actually see a lot of potential for this in things like surveillance, etc., outside of the amateur radio space. And Flex have some pretty good commercial products that do a similar sort of thing. It's at the top end of the price range as well, just under 12 grand. Similar to the 6500, but true single OP2 radio operation. Diversity reception, dual preamps, 2 metre capability. Maestro console, this is what I was talking about before. Actually based on a tablet as a graphical interface, and then quite an intuitive but simple user interface, which is really good for contesting. The last thing you want is 500 knobs to play with while you're trying to work a pile up or whatever. It's just this, you can program functionality into function buttons here, and then most of the rest of the sort of common things that you really want to be able to do, switch from one receiver or VFO to the other, etc., or split frequency operation, etc., is really quite intuitive here. And all your sort of normal adjustments, like width and things like that, are all up on here. So this is gaining a lot of popularity in serious contesting stations in... sorry? Touchscreen, yes. Yep. Yeah, it's getting... This is probably a little bit hard to visualise, but the touchscreen's roughly that wide, around about that high, I suppose. Certainly enough to play with, and it's got all the nice sort of, you know, you can compress it in like you can on an iPhone or whatever, or a smartphone. It's quite intuitive. You know, you can touch on here and adjust frequency and things like that. So yeah, lovely piece of kit. There's another, you know, if you don't want to spend the money on the Maestro head, this is the most common thing we've sold so far out of the range here. It works on all of the Flex product range. It's a focused mouse sort of type thing. So basically, it only operates the radio software. So you could be typing something into log, and then you want to adjust, you know, one of three, whatever you've set these up to, or adjust frequency, or whatever you've set the Flex the knob up for, and the knob is also a button. They'll all operate the radio software without affecting anything else. So even if you're typing away on logging software or digital a digital mode software, you can still control the radio from this knob. $158 on top of whatever you spend on the radio. So pretty much every time we sell one of these radios, we end up selling one of these with them as well. Yeah. So any questions? Maestro's in Australian dollars is pretty close to 2,000. Yeah, it's that's a hard one, and there was a conversation I had with Flex while I was over there, and their struggle is how to get that sort of touchscreen functionality, which is really quite important for the you know, it's pretty easy to build the knob side of things. That's not terribly much of a challenge. You can probably do that for a few $100s, but the touchscreen in a fairly stable environment, you know, in the same interface as the knobs is really what gets it up there, you know. So yeah, it's one of those things, you know, you can muck around with other things to get the same wave, and that's part of the joy of ham radio. But if you want to buy something that's just doing exactly what it needs to do, then that's generally what you buy, and they're pretty popular. Like at the moment, I've had a couple on order for a couple of months, and I'm still waiting because they're just so popular in the States that there's a waiting list now to buy them. Yeah. Yep. Oh. Oh. Mm. Oh, I don't know who you are. Yeah, that's one of... Yeah, no, I was happy to do it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. No, not quite. Yeah, but yeah. Yeah, I mean, my price has changed a fair bit since we went into this. The first gear that I brought over cost me about $700 to get here, and arrived in 2 or 3 days, which is really good because I ordered it like Tuesday before Hamfest in Perth, and was demonstrating on Saturday. But hams in Australia they look at the price in US dollars, and they go, oh, that's what it should be in Australian dollars, and don't charge me for freight, you know. And so, you know, I got quite negative reaction to our price point in Australia when we first did it. So I looked at what was being done in Europe in particular, in terms of where they were pricing it, and basically it's exactly the same price as in the States. In a euro equivalent, I looked at that and went, okay, fine. So that's what I need to do. So basically, we sell a 6000 series radio in Australia for the US dollar equivalent. We add $150 to it, Australian dollars, to that not only contributes to the freight costs of bringing it over from the States to here, but also from Perth to the customer. So that's brought us a little bit more interest in the market. People are sort of looking at, and there's a bit of a perception, deserved or otherwise, that Australian ham radio retail outlets are just fleecing the market, and it's actually cheaper to buy it from the States and bring it in. There is an element of truth in that, which I don't want to be tied to our business, and hence why I've decided that some of our margin will contribute to the freight costs, and hopefully the results of that will be more sales, which will reverse the effect. We do a few other things too. We're trying to be fairly smart with the exchange rate, and aiming to buy radios in bulk and bring them in. But it's a hard call in the Australian communications market at the moment. We're one of the few companies that's actually growing, but we don't grow because we spend money willy-nilly, So yeah, it's been a hard one, but I hope that the market will look at it, at what we're doing, and get behind us as well, and that we deserve to get that. That's more importantly. So, yeah. Yeah. Yep. Cool. Okay. Thanks. No. Oh yeah, okay, cool, yep. Mm-hmm. Mm. 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 No, it's not a year, it's just $200, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Mm. Yeah, that's right, yeah, because it's almost like a new radio in a box. Yeah. Mm. 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 Yep. Yeah, no, it's probably possibly not everyone's radio from that perspective, I suppose, but I think with the Maestro head, it's getting close. But it's a high-end radio, but it's a high-end performance as well. Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty comfortable with it. I like dealing with stuff that's really, really good, and you pay peanuts, you get monkeys, and this is a pretty decent radio. I'm pretty excited about the 1500. I mean, that's actually quite a nice little radio to have. It. I think it's equivalent to the Anand that I had before I bought the Flex. But I tell you now, having had the Anand, and this is not just a sales pitch. I got rid of the Anand and I picked this up probably a week later, and used it in the RD and the Lighthouse weekend. Lighthouse weekend, I had a mate come in with us who was who's a long-term Anand 100 owner, and this thing is a similar price to an Anand 100, I think. Certainly cheaper than an Anand 200, and he's looking at it and going, he was seriously impressed with it. So I just got to get him to buy one now. But it's. With the 6000 series, no, I haven't heard anything like that, and I don't believe it's happening either. I'm fairly well plugged into those guys now. Like going over there was a big boost to our relationship. They had a feeling that they'd gone down the road of appointing dealers here before, and and not felt a connection. And as soon as we started talking, they went, you know what, we're going to give these guys a go. We're a small company. I mean, there's no two ways about it. 2 years ago, there was like 2 people in my business. And, you know, it's 11 now. It's still not a mighty comms empire, and Motorola haven't tried to buy us out yet. You know, we're working on it. But yeah, it's there's some synergy there, and that was cemented by a visit over there, and I intend to do it fairly regularly. We do a little bit of business in the States as well, so it's not hard for us to do that. The other is there any other questions on Flex? No, sorry. GPS. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I have to find out. Yeah, I'd imagine you probably don't even need to buy theirs. I have to find out. I haven't been asked that before. So. I still have a lot to learn on the product. You know, I sold a 6500 to a guy in Melbourne who knows more about the product than I did. It was really obvious, and that's kind of spurred me on. One of the things that we had to commit to him to buy it was to work out how to get the 6500 working intuitively with. He had an SPE amplifier and a ultra beam, and he wanted to make sure that it would work with those. So using the software that's on this, it took me probably half an hour to download DTUtil and get that all working, because I've got an SPE amp at home, and I just got it working with that fairly quickly and intuitively. It's not the nicest interface you've ever seen, but it is freeware that's designed by a ham who just wanted something of his own to control everything he had in the shack. But since then, version 1.10 has come out, which gives possibility to use the USB ports in the 6000 series radio. So I've just ordered in a whole bunch of USB to serial adapters that will work with the 6000 series into either a serial or a parallel adapter. And I'll be playing with that probably over Christmas if it arrives in time, or not long after, to work out how to get this to talk to other products without having to have a computer in between. Because the computer is by far the weak point in any system in a shack, I reckon, in a lot of ways. The price is going to be set. It hasn't been released yet, and I don't know it even. But it's going to be competitive with the bigger brands like the SPE 1.5, the 1.5 kilowatt amplifier. And that sort of price range. So I'd imagine it's going to be somewhere around $5,000 to $6,000 Australian dollars, somewhere around there. But the beauty of it is that one, it will actually work with single operator 2 radio, so you'll be able to switch between antennas and ports on the radio, so that it can. You actually get a proper performing antenna on, for instance, on an opposite receive channel or whatever, and still be able to use the amplifier through that, which is a bit of a bugbear for the purists of it among us. The other things it does is all of the ALC, PTT, and all the operation of it and all that sort of stuff is all via the Ethernet interface, so that the amplifier will basically plug into your IP network and with the radio and just work intuitively from that, which is something I don't think you can do on any other amp at the moment. Certainly not with an Ethernet interface. That's due out in probably about March or April or something like that next year. Yep, I've just ordered 10 in just to see what they're like. Right, okay, yep, cool, yep, yeah, cool, alright, yeah, I've got a few other orders already actually as well, but I'm just ordering them in from China. They're not from Flex, but I'll be testing them before I sell them. So, but Flex were quite comfortable with that. They said, you can buy them from us if you really want, we've got them. Yeah, that's right, yeah, so these are FTDI. Yep.
So,
Mm.
if you find out too, we can have a broadcast for as well, if anything, or something to do with it.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
That's my details,
Yep. Yeah.
Well, we can come and comment. You might
Yep.
want to break
No,
it.
go.
You've
Be careful.
obviously a couple of flex proficient people having a discussion there. There was a comment before about the software-defined radio and actually not having knobs and switches. Steve showed the Maestro head before, which is basically the same as operating your standard hardware-based radio. But Steve, I'm from Melbourne. I've been here before, probably a few of you. But Steve said he was going to do this presentation kind of last minute, and asked me. I had 1500 at the office in Melbourne just to bring that, so I threw it in the backpack, and that's the beauty about the portability of these. But when this afternoon we were in the office and I realised that Steve was going to do the presentation, and he said, "Do you mind plugging into your laptop?" And I realised that I didn't have this laptop set up for the 1500. I actually had the PC back in Melbourne. So in the car on the way here from Botany tonight, I powered up my laptop. I had the Wi-Fi hotspot on my mobile phone, and I downloaded the software for it. And you probably all saw me playing with this before. It took me about 10 minutes, possibly, to configure the software, plug the radio in, and we saw it operating before, and Steve will give a demonstration of both 1500 and the 6300. But it took me about 10 minutes to configure it all and to get it to work properly. And that's the second time I've configured a PC to run with that computer, with that radio. So it's not difficult for anybody who's scared about software-defined radio. It's not that difficult. And I didn't have to know anything other than how to run Windows to get that if you're familiar with the term plug and play, that's basically what it was. So operating the software-defined radio, it doesn't have knobs and switches, but it's fairly simple to operate once you get to play with it. Like any ham, when I first looked at that 1500, I pulled it out of the box, plugged it in, got the software, configured it, powered it on and started playing with it. It was only until I got a little bit further down that I decided to pull its user's manual out and start working out how to actually use some of the functions. So really pretty intuitive. Yeah.
I'd argue about the knobs. I've been operating tablets for years, and those are knobs.
They're
flat, but you can actually touch them all. And on the 6000 series, it's even more intuitive, and you can just slide the finger back and forth. But I do have a flex control. I think I got that line still, but I don't actually use it very much. I found the best thing with the flex control is to assign the phone knob if you push the door. Because I'm so used to using the tablet. Tablet's one of those things you just get used to.
That's right. You were the first flex sale in Australia, from me anyway. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's not a touch screen, but yeah. Yeah. Yeah, sure, we can do that. Yep. I just want to make sure this was.
Well, I had this one.
Yep.
Working before.
It'll come up eventually.
So that was what I had up before. As I said, it took me about 10 minutes to configure the laptop and the 1500.
15 minutes to get the antenna working.
The hardest bit we had was the coax lead. Do you want to demonstrate?
Oh, yeah. You probably got more experience than I have on this one, but
Good signal there.
yeah.
Just,
Yeah. You drive it.
And we can call it the DX, or what do you name it? I'd like to call the DX for a while later.
Right, you're going to need to in your coffee and I'm going to go out to the kitchen.
So this is the 1500.
You go to
The little box there.
your
That's the basic. That's the
Yeah,
basic.
please do, and then
The
call
left
in
entry
and
level.
get two contacts from different states if I can work at DX station. Alright? Safe travels around the house, don't trip over. My wife might have set down a trip rope to get you out.
Right now, that's what all those bananas will the stairs.
Alright, be careful with all that. There might be a scalp banana field somewhere.
Basically, cherry is just a flipping rag. If you use the computer.
Thanks for the quick one.
Yep. So just can you turn it down a bit? Or?
Yeah, I'll probably. Oh.
Yeah. I just turn that. Oh, 2 GGC.
Is it?
Yeah. Other guys I hung around with a lot and helped build the station up in the Hunter.
What do you say? Full time what?
2 GGC, Kalamunda. They're a guide station, but we both John and I operated from on the RD contest 2 years ago and won it with them. So. Yeah.
So, yeah, very easy. It was only when I had to start using some of the other controls that I actually pulled out the user manual and started playing with it. Some of the things like the S meter, still got an analog in there as well as
GBN.
as well as your TBN.
Pretty much got the same. It's got the same look and feel, and very similar to use to the Apache Labs sort of, the HB STR user interface.
The level of noise reduction.
Yep.
That's without noise reduction.
There is a sure, certainly noise.
Levels.
Yep.
That's what I think we're using as
Yeah. Still, at the end of the day, it's a fair bit of functionality to lock into something that's cheaper than pretty much. It's a few $500 or $600 cheaper than an IC7300, albeit only 5 watts. But if you've got an amplifier that pretty much reverses that. Yeah. 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 A panoscope, is it? Yeah. Oh no, no.
there you go, that's
Yeah.
not so busy, and you can just
Yeah.
connect it now. Or you can turn it with a mouse wheel.
You want a job? I've got to admit, I don't want anyone to have the impression that we purport to be the experts on this, but and both of us are pretty busy at the moment on other projects, so this has been something we've been trying to fit in between. But every time we play with this thing, it's just, it just continues to amaze me. Yeah. This is probably one of the other things to look at here is the noise level that we've got at the moment is. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
So you can change the band path or
Yep.
the width.
Yep. And the width, yeah, from that as well. Yep. This doesn't have the oh yeah, that's the tunable noise filter as well.
If you notice the red,
Mm.
the red is center frequency, and then this is your lower sideband.
Mm.
And one thing this does, it gives you the S meter and the dB rating, dBm, and it does not matter if you put an attenuator in or preamp, it gives you the true signal level. If I turn on the attenuator here, I'll turn on the preamp or the attenuator. See, the S meter reading doesn't change at all. That's the way it should be.
Mm. Mm.
It actually makes quite a good little receiver because it's really well calibrated.
Mm.
Can we make it so we can hear it? Hear what?
No, you don't want to do that.
$500 a link ad, it sounds better.
No, you don't.
I do. I think it's a nut behind the wheel problem. Operator error.
Actually, it'd be interesting to pick a signal on 40 metres with that, and then we'll plug this one in and see.
You can have a 25 hertz filter on this and it doesn't ring.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. I'll make it 25 hertz.
Yeah.
Now I have to find the signal. See? It doesn't ring. I'll make it 100. 250. Pretty hard filter noise, but you can go right down to 25 hertz. It's pretty good.
That's impressive, isn't it?
Mm. Yep.
You do that with the
Okay, do you want me to sell? How many do you want me to sell for you?
Yeah, we're actually going to do that at our club in at home. Have a bit of a bake-off one night. Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, there's no two ways that the 7300 is you know, the sales speak for themselves. It's actually not, but value for money, it probably is one of the best. Yeah. 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 Oh, what have you done? Which is important. So what's that? 7148.
So can you understand what you're saying now?
Yeah, it's better.
Yeah. There's also receive. There's a fair bit of receive and transmit equalisation you can use as well, and that's actually the transmit equalising is quite important. Mm. Mm. Yeah. Right. 1001. Yep.
The difference between the noise floor and the signal packet.
Oh, GJC, not GGC. Yeah.
You got noise.
Oh, now I have to. Yeah, when I can find it. And there is ways to adjust it in this. This also has a yeah. Another interesting feature of this one is it's got a tracking noise filter, so you can actually block out a signal and still adjust your frequency, and it just keeps blocking out that one frequency. So particularly good in a contest environment, you know, where you're trying to trying to get rid of a loud signal that's like 5 kilohertz away. Yeah, so it's this. I can do that. Yeah, good on you, mate. Thank you for that, by the way. We'll talk about that later. Yeah.
So you can run, is it 2?
Yeah, with this one it's 2. Yeah, on different bands and stuff if you want as well, I think. So, yeah, all the same condition. Yeah, so. Yep. Yeah, anyone want to have a play around with it? I mean, it's got an antenna on it, so so you can give it a bell if you want. More than welcome.
Thanks very much, Steve.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks. Yep. Yep. Well,